All the managers have done their press conferences today ahead of the weekend's games, and it's been a few weeks since we heard from them. And a lot of people have been talking about
riveting stuff, I'm sure.
Well, a lot of people have been talking about what Arne Slot's been saying. He basically openly admitted that his team are pretty bad at set pieces, both scoring and defending them. And he tried to use it as a bit of a shot at Arsenal. He was like, if the team that are winning the league have scored, and 60% of their goals have been set pieces, whereas we haven't really scored any set pieces so far, I'm all right with that, because then when we score set pieces, we'll then be better and score more goals. But at the same time, he mentioned that they've conceded 9 goals, and 4 of those 9 they've conceded have been from set pieces. And it's not the first time that Slot's talking about this.
What's his problem?
I don't know. I think it was a bit of a... This is what everyone's saying, is it's a bit of a weird comment to make. Is Arsenal are obviously, your set-piece FC for a large part. That's such a massive part of your game plan, is being better and more dominant than everyone else at set-pieces. And Liverpool, they've been weak from set-pieces, both scoring and conceding this season. And Slot's openly admitted. He said it when they beat Newcastle 3-2. After the game, he was complaining. Yeah, Slot was being like, we couldn't deal with these long throws. I wasn't watching a game of football. I was all this stuff.
I think his point, sorry, because me and Alice are back here. I think his point that he's making is that, like, Arsenal's goals tend to come from set pieces, corners, etc. And what he's saying is that they score from open play, and then once they sort out their set piece situation, then he would rather that. I think that's what he was getting at. I think, if you can read between the lines. I mean, it's a bit of an odd comment to make, because you can say that you're weak at certain areas and you want to improve on it. I don't really know why there had to be a dig at Arsenal for it. But, hey-ho.
Sounds like a man that's under a bit of pressure.
I don't think he's
because he wasn't coming out with all this stuff last season when he was winning.
He's not under pressure. Come on, I know that we.
No, I'm being serious. Well, normally you get managers when they make these types of weird statements and do weird things.
It's deflection.
In my experience, it's normally an indicator that someone's feeling the pressure a bit, and they start coming out with these weird and wonderful stuff. I mean, can somebody tell me when Arsenal score a goal via a set piece, is there an asterisk against it? In the, when it's being recorded.
No, a goal's a goal.
Exactly. So
to a certain extent, a goal is a goal. I think the issue when people were talking about this stuff previously with Arsenal set pieces, it was that it was almost your only route. It was like there was a period I remember towards the turn of the year where it was like all the only goals you were scoring was corners. That's obviously Arteta is looking to change that and has changed that to a certain extent so far this season. You're scoring both from open play and you're also still scoring from, like, not essentially just corners but set piece situations, free kicks, long throws, all of that stuff.
But just briefly, I see that as credit to Arsenal. They're improvising, because we all know that defences, especially at top-level football, they can make it very difficult for you the way they defend. So if you can circumvent that by coming up with ways to score goals, set pieces, long throws, whatever, long ball over the top, nobody should look down on that and be snide. But you know what? Fine. If people want to, cast aspersions or throw shade, let them do it. As long as we keep winning, I've got no problem with it at all.
This season, there's been a massive shift. I think potentially an unexpected shift towards much more Route 1 football, hasn't there? You've seen, like, Man City, obviously, against Arsenal, when you're at the Emirates, was what, they had like 30-something% possession maximum. What is Alice doing?
I think she wants to get on the table.
She wants to get on the table.
Just come on. You want to
sit down for a minute,
okay,
Alice?
Go sit down.
She'll be back throughout the show, of course.
Okay.
But there's been a big shift towards Route 1 football. I mean, United against Sunderland, that was pretty Route 1. And Mason Mount said he came out after the game and he said that the instruction was, as soon as Sunderland started pressing, Lamens, our goalkeeper, his instruction was, right, just hit Šeško on the halfway line, just find him. And it's something that Slot has recommended, he's been referencing to in here. So he says, I think in open play we are conceding too many crosses. The amount of long balls that we are facing now compared to last season, I think we're already 1/3 of the way of the amount of long balls we have to defend compared to last season after 7 games already. So Slot seems like he didn't expect this. So obviously they signed all their big players, all their big strikers, their big attackers, and they're really attacking wing backs. Then they failed to get Mark Gahey, which, I mean, definitely has been a big blow for them, considering that, they are not weak at centre back but light at centre back.
Yeah, but they won the league last year with Konate and Van Dijk. So I'm not.
But Konate's not been that good this season.
I think it's also the lack of depth. I think that's the problem of having a lack of depth. And obviously there's a lot of talk about Konate not being there at some point, whether it is, I don't think he'd probably go in Jan, but more towards the end of the season. Having the injuries as well that they've got, it leaves them very weak. It leaves them light. And that is I think, a massive oversight on their part. I mean, in terms of the window, they had a brilliant window. You know, getting someone like an Alexander Isak. I know it hasn't been as smooth as maybe everyone would have liked it to be, but Ekitike's a really good signing, having new fullbacks. But I think the key area was you knew that you needed to strengthen a little bit of centre-back, and that's an area that they just didn't do. They must have had an option other than Mark Gahey, which is kind of odd that they didn't utilise it. But just what you were saying before, kind of on the whole long ball, we're going back to Stoke FC, you know, type of thing. Obviously, it suits you massively. You've kind of set a new trend of this whole, you know, very 6'3" plus player, you know, very good defensively. Look, football changes. You know, we've gone from eras which are 4-4-2, and it's more of like, you know, Sean Dyche's Big Sam type football. Then we've had like the pepping and the tiki-taka type football and all of that, and now we're just going through another cycle, and there's nothing wrong with that. Whether or not that's caught other teams or Arne Slot off guard, that's a different question. That's the thing that he would need to answer. He would need to answer himself. But you still need to adapt and adjust. And okay, if teams are going to come at you and play that way, then you need to be able to facilitate that as a manager.
Do you think that? I'm not going to ask if it was a mistake or not, but it's potentially not necessarily the right idea to be as open as this in press conferences. Like in terms of, because he's literally been speaking, obviously it's on not the eve, but a couple of days before playing Manchester United at Anfield after losing 3 games in a row. And then he was asked for, like, because the question was like, what's like his message to the players after these last 3 losses, etc. And he just kind of really openly says, we're struggling from crosses, we're struggling from long balls, all this stuff. Ahead of a game at Manchester United after we played very long ball football against Sunderland, is it a bit of a mistake to just openly admit the flaws that his team currently have?
You can make a case for both sides of the coin. I mean, your manager's known to be quite open and honest, isn't he?
But he doesn't tend to be honest and open about necessarily like the flaws of the team. He more talks about the general state of Manchester United at the moment. That's where he's really open. But Amorim does tend to be a little more guarded when talking about like the weaknesses and strength of his team in public.
Well, our manager, I'm not sure if you've seen many of his press conferences, but he's very guarded. In fact, he's very, very guarded and almost suspicious of the press. And you can see it by the way he answers the questions. So tends to make the press conferences not that exciting to watch. He's no Jose, for example. You know what I mean? He's going to crack one-liners and entertain. But, yeah, I'm kind of indifferent to it, really. Yeah.
Do you think it doesn't really have much of an impact on the game?
No, I don't. No.
Like it won't change the way that Amorim might place or set up against them, or like or you might think, you know, is he trying to set a trap? Is he trying to talk about like he's mentioning this so we try and play long ball and then turns out they do something else, which then, or is
I don't mind managers
just
being
talking?
A bit candid and honest at times, to be honest, rather than repeat the same old types of responses to the same old questions. It's quite refreshing to hear a manager, you know, express his thoughts a little bit more candidly. I think that's fine.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I also don't think it makes any difference in terms of how Liverpool would have prepared for the week, how Manchester United would have prepared for the week. I think that, I'm not being funny, they've got footage of every single game at every single club. You know, I don't think it makes any difference. I quite like that managers are more open and honest nowadays, rather than just kind of give that top line answer where they're not really allowed to say anything. I think it's better for fans. At least you can understand. It feels like they connect with you a little bit more when you can see they're being honest. Otherwise, what's the point? If Arne Slot was to sit there and be like, oh, you know, like we'll bounce back, performances, you know, haven't been great, but there's all these positives, blah blah. Then you're sitting there and being like, well, no, actually, we've been pretty underwhelming for the whole season so far, and we were getting away scraping wins at the last minute. So you'd rather have someone that is like, okay, we're struggling with this. I mean, it's no different to what everyone else can see. It doesn't mean that that's what he's relaying to the players. It just means that everyone has got a set of eyes, and if you watch football, you can see what they're struggling with.
Agreed.
Some of the chat talking about the fact that Slot at point, like he loses the plot or he loses control at times, because obviously he had it quite. I think we can all agree Slot had it fairly easy last season. In the way of he had a very good squad set up by Jurgen Klopp, and it was Jurgen Klopp's squad. He assigned one player. The rest was just a very good squad with Jurgen Klopp. Salah was on fire, and a lot of the teams in the league underperformed. I think almost everyone bar Liverpool, we think, probably underperformed. Whereas this season, I think when we talk about Slot maybe being under pressure, it's not necessarily the pressure of staying in his job or anything. It's the pressure of expectation